Coming up, you're never too old to take on something new like stand-up comedy. We talk tunes in Tulmur Place and live music in Ipswich. How well do you know your local councillors? And reminiscing about the era of backyard dunnies. Get ready for another yarn over the back fence with Walter Williams and Ashleigh Mack. It's Wednesday, February 22, 2023. And I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Walter Williams has called Ipswich home for 32 years, and you will know his voice on many TV and radio ads. And he was previously heard doing his own show on QFM, Star FM, River and 4BC. Welcome, Walter.
Bottoms up, lads.
Ashleigh Mack was born in Ipswich, and growing up in Ebbw didn't affect him very much at all. He was the first voice on QFM in 1990, still a media tart, and owns a small business that makes great coffee. Welcome, Ash.
I'm glad you like the coffee. It's Merlot and it's great stuff.
I do like the coffee. We're going to start the show with something a bit different this month. And we're focusing on you, Walter, and your first stand-up appearance at Studio 188. Now, before we talk about it, this is Walter live on stage.
I used to be famous a long time ago, and for the last 7 years I've been heard on radio and TV as a voice, instead of being on the TV, doing the talkback radio. And I've retired from all of that, and people ask me, how's life? Is it great? And I say, yeah, well, life is great. Life is great in the Sunshine State. Got my own private jet. Are you impressed? Yeah. Well, my wife has the rest of the spa.
Hey, you had a few fans there, Walter. But
That was a great reaction. Yeah.
But look, I've got to ask, why have you decided to tackle what I think would be a scary proposition to get up on stage there and tell gags?
It's very scary, but Anthony was holding this course, Anthony Lamond. Well, I've actually got the certificate here, lads, my graduation certificate. And Anthony, being the smart man he is, has actually signed his name where it should be mine. But I made my graduation performance. Going into it, and this is someone who is a professional MC and all of that. All three of us have been doing this for years on stage, on microphone, but it's very different doing stand-up. It's a whole different beast.
You are totally exposed, aren't you, and relying on your own wit. Ash, have you had a crack at such a thing?
Oh, no, never. I don't have Walter's got bigger ones than I've got. Walter's got big. But the thing is, do you remember the first day you went on air? And you got those butterflies?
Yes. They went on for a while for me.
Yeah, these weren't butterflies. Well, they started out as butterflies, and they ended up like African killer bees that were in their nest being hit like a piñata. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. We did a few read-throughs up at Studio 188 on the morning of the actual event that happened that night. So it was a crash course. It was all taking place in like a 5-hour space of time or something, right? In that time, we had to construct a routine and then nail it and then edit it and get it to the final point where we could have something that we could actually put out in front of the public. And we had a packed performance that night. We sold out.
You going to keep doing it?
I might have another crack.
I reckon you should.
The thing is, I've broken through that initial barrier, and that's the hardest thing. That was the toughest thing to do. At the initial reading, the first reading, where we're just doing a table reading of our gags, right? My hands were shaking. I was physically shaking, and I can't remember a situation like that except maybe as recently as when I first started doing talk radio with 4BC, because that was pretty terrifying and nerve-wracking.
You know what you should do? Every year they do a little one-act play at the Incinerator Theatre. I did it about 10 years ago. Best experience ever. Go and do that next. You'd love it. And they're always looking for cast members.
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I could have remembered all my lines. I don't know if I could now, to be honest.
Anyway, congratulations, Walt. You had a very appreciative crowd there.
They were wonderful. And I said I didn't invite any family or friends because I really wasn't prepared for that. So thank you to everyone who was generous enough to come along and support us.
Okay, this is our monthly Over the Back Fence yarn with Walt and Ash on Ipswich Today, and we'll move on to some other Ipswich topics and Ipswich Central latest. Tunes in Tulmur. It's got a nice ring to it. I love the concept with performances in Tulmur Place. Have either of you been to any yet?
I haven't been to any, but I'd like to go and have a squiz.
Oh, I actually got down to the tail end of the last one. And caught them before they wrapped up. They did a couple of songs, and it was really good. There was it was a duo on stage from memory. Brilliant. I think they're local, and
well, that was going to be my point.
Very much appreciated crowd.
Yeah. Are they local?
Are they local?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Look, I'm not saying that it has to be 100% local, but I think the venue, if they mixed it up with a draw card, and you need a draw card, let's face it.
You've got to have a draw card, yeah.
But mix it up with some up-and-coming local bands to get involved in regular live shows, because, Ash, I'm looking at you here because you're the musician amongst us. Wouldn't that be just such a great boost for not all young people either, could be any age?
Actually, what they should do is something we used to do at Brothers about, probably 5 years ago. I went for about 5 years. Is a few of us would get together and donate our backline. The backline is your drums and rhythm section, blah, blah. Set up on stage, and then we'd invite everybody in and have a jam. Now, what it did...
Fantastic.
You'd get different people up on stage, and you started to realise just how much great talent there is in this town. Right, because at the time I was playing drums. I play keyboards now, but in those days I was playing drums, and there weren't too many drummers around. However, now there are drummers everywhere. And if we could get that going, right, where, say, once every month they had the jam, and as soon as it gets out in the grapevine, you'll get great entertainment. And people getting on stage and singing and carrying on, they're great.
Yeah, I reckon it's the next thing council should focus on, because they're running that space. You know, that balance of having a draw card and the up-and-coming bands, the local guys and girls, and really it would only take, I would think, 2 or 3 performances, and if they're good, they'll become the draw card.
And that could alternate with the tunes. You could have jams in Tulmur.
Yep. Awesome.
That'd be great.
Good idea, Walt. We'll put you on the committee.
You're organising.
Well, I had a birthday party a few years ago where I called it a jam party. And we went to a venue, and like you say, you have a back line, and then everyone gets up and plays. And it's amazing amongst my group of friends how many talented people there are that could play all sorts of instruments, and those who could actually sing. I mean, I'm a talker, not a singer.
Who were the big local live bands in Ipswich over the years that you remember?
There's been heaps. They were a Brisbane band, Season of the Witch. Flight was one that was really good. I've still got friends on Facebook. I can't remember the names of their bands, but who were musicians here 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Actually, Mick Stewart is still running around with his band, Double Vision, doing bits and pieces around the place.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting you were saying about the birthday party, Walter. This coming weekend, do you know of Shirley Baker, the solicitor who opposite Brown and Baker?
Now tell the story.
Well, Shirl is retiring. Now, Shirl's husband happens to be the lead guitarist in our band, so we're dragging everybody together. But Shirl was also Jamie Dunn's solicitor. So Jamie's coming along, and he'll undoubtedly sing. And all of a sudden, we've got people coming out of the woodwork now. We've got one lady who wants to do, I've got the music in me, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. That's happening this weekend, but unfortunately, it's a closed event.
It sounds like it's going to be a great event, though.
It will be, yeah. You'll hear a lot of noise around Brasselway. That's us.
Love to be a fly on the wall at that one.
All right, let's move on to something a little bit more serious now. I was able to catch up with Councillor Nicole Jonick last week for a chat. It's one of the previous podcasts on Ipswich Today. And one of the things she said really was a surprise, wasn't a surprise. She said most people don't know who their local councillors are. Do you agree?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That, like, if you asked me to name them, I'd have no chance. I think Tully's the only one I remember because he's from the crew before.
Yeah.
And by the way, I bumped into Paul at Costco a couple of weeks ago. It was great to see him.
All right.
Yeah.
Walter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you on that one. Last time I saw Paul was over at Springfield Central at Orion. And
I'm talking about Ashleigh.
Oh, you're talking... I was talking
okay.
Tully.
Right, okay. Well, they're both very well known.
Yeah.
So,
But we know them.
Yes.
We don't know the others.
I was down at that cottage in Ipswich there that does the tea. I can't think of the name. Rafter and Rose, right? Having brunch with my wife, and who's at the table across from us? Marnie Doyle.
Right in the middle of her area.
Exactly. As having her, I don't know what she was up to, but and you don't want to interrupt because you think the last thing she needs is probably someone just rocking up to a table and having a whinge.
Hello, councillor. I'd like to have a whinge.
I will say this about Marnie, even though she's hard to get to, accessibility-wise, at least she is visual in the community. There is a man who is also part of our division. I couldn't... If I ran over him with my car, I wouldn't know who he was.
So what should be done to improve this awareness? Is it entirely up to the councillors to get out there? How do they do it? What do they do?
You've got, like you said earlier, tunes in Tulmur. There's a situation. You don't mix politics with religion or whatever, but or music. But what you could do is at least make them a presence and get them up there and just say hello to people.
Nice. Is it just a result of all new members in their first term?
Look, it is that, and it's also the fact that Ipswich is so spread out. We don't have a single media market here. And I might have mentioned this on previous shows. So if you're a councillor in Toowoomba, you've got the local TV news that does a half-hour local news. Well, we don't get that for Ipswich. They have to fight with other councils in southeast Queensland to get a bit of airtime on the TV. So raising your profile is definitely more difficult in Ipswich, but they have to get out and about. Look, some of them are out and about every day at community groups and events, and it just takes time, I think.
Alan, on that topic of media, it was actually raised by one of my fellow amateur comedians at Studio 188. He made it part of his set, and it's true. It's not just a joke, but it's true, that when the media in Brisbane wants to talk about anything successful in Ipswich, it's west of Brisbane. When it's a chance to dump on Ipswich, they name Ipswich. And you see that pattern repeated time after time.
It has been repeated time after time. I will defend a couple of very good journos in the metropolitan area that they don't always do that. But overall, that is the perception, Walt. Ipswich libraries are always a good news story, and even when I was working at council, I loved working with the library staff to promote what they do because it's just fantastic. It's the number one touch point for Ipswich residents to visit Ipswich libraries, and since they've created the separate children's library, which is the first in Australia, and the main library, the numbers are going through the roof, as it is at Springfield Central, Redbank Plains, and even Rosewood. What are your earliest memories of going to the library? I'll start with you, Walt.
Oh, look, I love books. My parents used to read to me when I was a child, and I did the same thing with our children. And that's how you make their love of books and interest in reading grow. And part of that is taking them to the local library. And that's what I did as a child, and I encourage my children to do it as well. But having said that, I am no longer a physical member of any library at this stage. I mean, I joined digitally when I was over at Carolee one day with that funky little setup
the
they
kiosk.
got.
The
kiosk. But I don't think that was working terribly well at that stage. They had to iron out a few bugs. But we've got one of the most brilliant libraries in Australia and one of the best children's libraries, haven't we?
And they're certainly different now, very high tech, very inviting. You no longer have to be quiet, although they still do have quiet corners set aside. In fact, my earliest memories of a library was probably Stratford in Cairns, which was in the old Mulgrave Shire. And and I remember you did have to be quiet, and it was it was like hushed tones. So I'm so glad that's a thing of the past, because kids are kids. They want to make a noise.
Exactly. I remember walking from, after 3 o'clock, walking from Central Boys State School, which was in Milford Street, just behind the Opportunity School there, which is now that special school, down past the Central Milk Bar and getting a milkshake there, right? Then back up the hill. Do you know where the library was originally?
In the...
Indian Melville.
Yeah, that building.
Yeah. We used to have to go there to get our books out, right? And then go up there, then catch the bus to Ebervale after I'd take my books out.
And how many late fines did you have, Ash?
A lot, because I didn't like that. I think I spent my late fines at the Central Milk Bar.
We've been doing a fair bit of reminiscing today through our chat, men. And Walter, you've suggested this one. I'm not sure why, but the backyard dunny then and now. Why have you suggested that as a reminiscing topic?
I think it pops up from time to time on the Lost Ipswich site on Facebook as well, because people love to reminisce about the days when there were dunny carters and the buggers. That was the worst job, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like any job any job that involves effluent, you should be paid more for. It's as simple as that. And they used to have to slop those cans on their shoulders down to the truck and sort of throw it in. Oh, it's disgusting. I was an old Townsville boy, so we had them in the backyard up home there in Woolgaroo. And I remember them not fondly, but I do remember them. and there was a smell that will outlast religion in those things, wasn't it?
Yeah. Ash, now you must be old enough to remember as well.
Oh, definitely. We had one at Ebervale, right? I remember as a kid, the guy walking into the backyard and that tar-covered that tin with a lid on it and that sort of stuff. And I think they poured the sawdust into the box at the side, emptied it out, then put it in. But they are dangerous things. They are dangerous because...
How so?
Well... a lot of my family lived in the old New Chum. Do you remember before the mine there used to be a little settlement, New Chum, and I had aunties and uncles and that sort of stuff there. And I had this one particular old auntie. She would have been about 190, I reckon. What happened was she decided at about 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the loo. Right, so she had to go out down the back stairs, and she got to the end of the stairs and just stopped. Thought there's something wrong here. And what had happened between her back stairs and the loo, we'd had one of those cave-ins that Ipswich had been notorious for. And there was a drop. There was this huge opening in the ground.
Wow.
It was like 20 metres across or something, and just gone down 6 or 7 metres.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And she almost walked straight into it, but she didn't.
Lucky.
So she survived. She survived the outdoor loo, but there's a reason why you should have them in the house.
Yeah.
I just think, listening to you two guys now, you both have been living in the lap of luxury with the...
really?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
serious.
Tell us
because
more.
you had someone to come and take it away once a week or whatever it was.
True.
Well, growing up out in the bush near the North Pine Dam before it was built, there was no such luxury, no such collection. I had to help Dad dig a hole.
Dig it. Yeah.
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah,
and then you
empty
move it.
Yeah, the hole moves around. Well, we're on a few acres, so you had plenty of room to rotate. You just didn't step in that spot for a while.
Yeah, but what's going to happen in 20,000 years' time when some archaeologist is digging and saying, what the hell is this?
Well, now talk of the actual buildings. They've become a bit of an art form. So how do you upcycle an old outside dunny?
A lot of guys use them as tool sheds.
Tiny tool shed.
Yeah, but it's a good place to keep your rakes and your all that sort of stuff out the backyard. They use them as those. And then when they all disappeared, when they started putting sewage in, one of the funny things was people would come along and push them over.
Oh, yes.
Because they were that light, you could push them over. Yeah.
Oh, that's good fun stuff. Let's wrap it up this month. What's going on in the neighbourhood that we should know about? Ash, you first.
Oh, probably there's a lot of, I'm seeing on Facebook, in the local Facebook areas, a lot of dog attacks. And people don't seem to be looking after their dogs. The dogs are out. I know my wife's been attacked twice.
They have to be on a leash.
Yeah, well, they should be on a leash, but you feel guilty about saying, hey, if I report this, that poor person's going to lose their dog. Right. But the thing is, when your wife comes home with a busted finger and that sort of stuff, you go the other way around, you know.
So this is in recent weeks you're talking about?
No. That happened about 2 years ago.
Oh, right.
But what's scary is you see the same dog out in the road at times, you know, which is not good. Not good.
It's all about responsible pet ownership, if I can borrow a phrase from council. Walt, what's going on in your neighbourhood?
Well, just to carry on that theme, I actually discovered the dog park, the leash-free ones out near Bundabba have reopened. I'm not sure how long ago, because for a while I avoided that area because they were rebuilding that little bridge after it had flooded in last year, and so the parks themselves had been closed for months and months, and I just gave up in the end. But today I noticed it was reopened, so that's good news. And just carrying on from that, I have put in a special request with council in my region along the Ipswich River Heart to get a doggy-do box where they can have the bags hanging off the side, and then you can put the refuse in there once you've collected after your dog's done his thing. As I say, with Henry, he conducts a press conference. And he has at least one of those daily.
Yeah, you know what they should? They should be in the shape of a small outhouse.
Well, that would make it obvious, wouldn't it?
Keep the theme alive.
Yeah. Keep the theme alive, you know.
With the doggy-do bags on the outside, yeah, for sure. All right, guys, it's been a fun chat over the back fence for February. We'll do it all again next month. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next month. Thanks, Walt.
Ciao.
Thank you, El. And thank you, Ash. And notice the last few minutes, all we talked about was poo.
And don't forget to check the show notes for handy links. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music. Or play Ipswich Today on smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.